Hello and welcome to the Rogers Brief. I'm Adam Rogers. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening. I'm going to talk about day 22 of the Mass Casualty Commission proceedings. I'm also going to talk about a legal challenge that has been brought to the Mass Casualty Commission by Coltfoots Publishing, which publishes Frank magazine, dealing with the Big Stop surveillance videos. So we'll talk about that last, but there was some interesting proceedings today. This is the week of emergency alerts, and there were more witnesses today, more individuals, I guess, testifying, speaking, as part of two witness roundtables. There was a witness roundtable in the morning talking about emergency alert communications, how that can best operate, and then in the afternoon there was another roundtable on accessibility and equality when it comes to emergency alerts. The first roundtable was moderated by Krista Smith from the Mass Casualty Commission Research and Policy Team, and it included Jennifer Jesty from Eskasoni, Cheryl McNeil from Lansdowne Consulting in Ottawa, who've done a report for the Mass Casualty Commission, Paul Mason, who we saw earlier in the week from the EMO, the Executive Director of Emergency Management Office in Nova Scotia, Tim Triton, who is a retired EMO professional from Alberta, and Michael Hallows, who we heard testifying yesterday from England, international consultant and expert. There's some interesting tidbits. Actually, one of the first points that kind of raises is how many people are really involved in emergency management planning and thinking about this kind of stuff all the time and giving it a great deal of thought. So I guess that's kind of encouraging in its own way. They went through the discussion. I thought a discussion worked well because they all had kind of a variety of experience within different systems. They were bringing forth examples, Toronto criminal activity and alerts issued there, Amber alerts, the Fort McMurray fires, the terrorist attacks in 2005, December 7th terrorist attacks in London, and then other activities, natural disasters and such. So great range of experience. So, but some common themes were emerging from it, and I think it's important that the commission sort of recognize these. Miss Jesty, I thought the Eskasoni model was actually quite interesting, and I could see that being expanded to other Indigenous communities. It's an opt-in system, which I know Cheryl McNeil mentioned doesn't work so well in an urban setting, but in a rural setting it seemed to work quite well. And people could get messages in their own Mi'kmaq language, messages from the chief, and so it had a lot of good features, I thought. Tim Triton talked about a decentralized system. We heard about that from Michael Hallows yesterday as well. A decentralized system where those closest to the ground, closest to the situation, have the authority to issue an emergency alert. They talked about of course, that's going to increase the number of errors and the potential for errors, but the trade-off between that and the speed involved was well worth it. Speed was a recurring theme throughout the comments in the morning. You can always apologize for warning people of too much, things not being as bad as you thought, but not for not alerting people. That was Tim Triton's approach to emergency alerts. And like Miss Jesty said in Eskasoni, nobody has ever said, listen, there's just too many emergency alerts or anything like that. The reaction to the public has been a responsible reaction, no panic reported. Of course, the message design, all those things are important, that they should be simple, clear, concise, and complete. And then if there's mistakes in information, then that mistake should be corrected publicly. And then when the emergency is over, that should be identified as well, so people are aware of what's happening and can act appropriately as a result. Tim Triton said another interesting thing, which, there was a lot of technology talk and the 4G and SMS messaging and all those things. And so there'll be certainly recommendations dealing with those aspects and having, at least having the widest reach possible for these emergency alerts. But Tim Triton says, the slowest part of any system is the human element. It's the human that's making a decision, assessing the situation, and thinking about what to say. So that was the morning. I thought it was, we've covered a lot of ground in emergency alerts, but that was further ground and I guess reinforcing some of what we've heard earlier in the week too. The afternoon was also dealing with emergency alerts, another roundtable. This one was covering a lot of issues. I'm not going to say a whole lot about it really, that were valid in their own right. Making sure that we're sensitive to issues of race, to language issues, making sure that they're bilingual or trilingual, depending on where the emergency may be taking place. And then, the indigenous communities, the differentiation of the systems between indigenous and non, all of these things important in their own right, not particularly relevant to an active shooter emergency situation. We heard all morning about how important speed is to the equation. Get the information out, even if imperfect. The afternoon was a lot about considering the content of the message and all of these other things that it would, in many cases, potentially slow down the delivery of the emergency alert. So, some certainly things to think about in the structure and having things in place though, so that when an alert is issued, that all of these other things happen automatically. But that was that. There was an interesting example. Miss Jesty again mentioned that there was a person going around Eskasoni trying to talk to girls in the street and recruit them into the sex trade, and that was an emergency that was issued very quickly and without a lot of detail, because they didn't have a lot of detail at the time, but issued the alert and got it out there so people could know to get in the house and to watch for it. And the person was discovered in a different community. But so that was just another sort of reinforcement of the importance of getting the message out there, even if all the details aren't available. Okay, so I think that's enough for emergency management. There was, like I say, lots of discussion of that today. Some of it was more technical. The other thing I wanted to talk about, though, was this Big Stop video issue. You may recall, if you've heard the other video I did on this, was there is surveillance video from the Big Stop. There were 6 surveillance videos that captured the scene of the final moments of Gabriel Wortman's life, where he was shot and killed by Constables Hubley and McLeod at the gas pump there at the Irving Big Stop. So, of course, there's cameras everywhere, but during the foundational document presentation and during the testimony, all we have seen so far are still images of what took place. And of course, it gives you a different perspective on an event if you only see photographs, and then you take a minute and then you talk about it and then you go to the next photograph. Well, it doesn't give you the same sense of time as a video does that's running at regular speed. So, 5 of these 6 videos have been sent to the media, but under strict conditions that they not publish it and that they, in fact, delete it after having viewed it. There were some of these videos that were published last year by Frank Magazine, not as good a quality, but they were out there, and they were certainly, to me, there was nothing gruesome or overly graphic about them, but I saw them at the time, and I wouldn't see any reason why they couldn't be played publicly. The 6th one I haven't seen, and nobody, it exists, but nobody has seen it. So, interestingly, not the parties, but Coltfoots Publishing, which publishes Frank Magazine, has written to the Mass Casualty Commission, wrote on April 28th asking for standing. This is David Hutt is their lawyer from Birchall's, not Birchall McDougall, who is also Birchall McDougall is representing some of the parties in some of the families. This is David Hutt from Birchall's, asking for standing to make submissions that this video be available to be published. It's going to cost them some money to do so, all these things. So Monday, June 13th, the hearing is going to take place in front of the commissioners. They've set aside 3 hours. Frank Magazine gets half an hour. Other parties will get some time. And then the Commission Council gets 45 minutes. The interesting thing about this is that, according to the Frank Magazine article, the Commission Council have opposed the disclosure and use of these videos, which, of course, they are relevant moments, incredibly important moments in this whole scenario, and this is the best possible evidence. Like, when you think about what's the best possible way you can determine what happened in a situation, video of that situation is the sort of gold standard, especially if you can hear what's going on. I don't know if you can in these videos. But, next is photos, next is, witness accounts. And, witness accounts are about the worst way in a way to find out what's going on. So that's what we're left with. The question I have is why Commission Council is opposing this application. And when I was thinking about this, I looked back to the interim report. And On page 45 of that report and page 46, there's some discussion about the role of commission teams, including commission counsel. Commission counsel, it says, are objective and impartial. They must ensure that all matters which bear on the public interest are brought to the attention of the commissioners. All right. Very much like a Crown prosecutor role. A Crown prosecutor is not supposed to seek victories or convictions, but rather seek justice, and there's disclosure obligations and all these things that go along with that. It continues on the next page. It says, commission counsel act impartially and thoroughly with the goal of assisting the commissioners in arriving at the truth by ensuring that all issues, all evidence, and all significant theories are brought forward. Well, anyway, any way you define those terms, that includes the best possible evidence of a key moment in this scenario. So it's amazing to me that commission counsel, it's not amazing, but it seems very wrong to me that commission counsel is opposing this application. They should be, given their role, supportive of the application. In fact, if this were a Crown prosecutor doing this in a criminal trial, this would be considered a fairly clear ethical violation on their part, and they could get in a fair amount of trouble for not doing so. Disclosure obligations, making sure this evidence is before the public is very important. The role of inquiry counsel is not as clear, relatively speaking, in those legal ethical terms. So I'm not going to go and say that that's an ethical violation here, but it's certainly absurd to me that the disclosure and use of the best possible evidence of key moments needs to be requested. If this is the trauma-informed mandate, that an example of it, then it is really being stretched beyond all recognition. Another point, and this will be the final thing I'll mention, is that it's a little curious to me that it's not the parties that are making this request. They're supposed to be, in a way, a proxy for the public, and yet, here's this evidence, and, for some reason, at least publicly, it doesn't seem like they've challenged the withholding of that evidence. So we'll see. Hopefully the hearing on June 13th will be public, and we'll be able to watch what they say. It'll be interesting to hear them speak for 45 minutes and really elaborate on their own interpretation of this mandate and why that means withholding evidence in this case. So anyway, that was another interesting thing. That came out. The article came out this morning, so I wanted to tell you a little bit about that, and we'll be back next week with some further proceedings. But that was it for emergency management. Lots of good recommendations certainly going to emerge from that area. So thanks again for watching, and we will see you next time.